I never expected to meet my match across a chessboard in Mobile's sweltering community center, but there she sat. Golden hair pulled back severely, brown eyes studying the pieces like they held the secrets of the universe. Mary Wood, according to her name tag. 30 maybe, with the kind of quiet intensity that made my 58-year-old heart skip faster than it should. "Your move," she said softly, voice carrying traces of something I couldn't place. Not quite Southern, not quite anywhere. I'd been playing chess for decades, ink-stained fingers moving pieces while my mind calculated angles and possibilities. But this woman had me scrambling. 3 moves in, I realized she wasn't just good, she was devastating. "You play often?" I asked, moving my knight. "Not lately." Her smile held mysteries. I had other commitments. The air conditioning wheezed against Alabama's summer heat. Around us, retirees hunched over boards while kids fidgeted in plastic chairs. But our corner felt separate, electric with something I couldn't name. She captured my bishop with elegant precision. Check. Damn. I hadn't seen that coming. "Miranda Kelly," I offered, extending my hand. "I run the tattoo parlor on Dauphin Street." Her fingers were softer than expected, no wedding ring. "Mary Wood, I'm between careers." Between careers. In Mobile, that usually meant recently divorced or laid off. But something about her screamed neither. "What kind of work?" I pressed, studying her face for tells. I was a nun. The piece I'd been moving clattered to the floor. A nun. This strategic goddess who'd been systematically dismantling my defense was a damn nun. Was? Recent career change. Her laugh held no humor. 20 years of devotion tends to leave gaps in one's resume. 20 years. She'd entered the convent at 10? No, more likely she was older than she looked. The math made my pulse quicken in ways that definitely weren't appropriate. I retrieved my fallen piece, noticing how her modest blouse couldn't quite hide the curves underneath. Former nun or not, Mary Wood was all woman. "Checkmate in 4 moves," she said quietly. I stared at the board, seeing her trap unfold. Brilliant and ruthless. "Unless you're planning something unexpected," she added, those brown eyes meeting mine with challenge. Something unexpected. Story of my life. 58 years old, silver threading through my brown hair, running a tattoo shop in conservative Mobile. Everything about me was unexpected. "I might surprise you," I murmured, moving my queen into position. Her eyebrows rose fractionally. As she reached for her piece, her sleeve pulled back slightly. There, on her inner wrist, was the faintest edge of black ink. A tattoo. The reformed nun had a tattoo. "Interesting jewelry," I said, nodding toward her wrist. She tugged her sleeve down quickly, color rising in her cheeks. "Old mistake." "I don't believe in mistakes, only choices we're not ready to explain." Our eyes locked across the board. The tournament noise faded. In that moment, surrounded by chess pieces and community center fluorescence, something shifted between us. Something that had nothing to do with games and everything to do with recognition. She moved her rook. "Your turn, Miranda." My turn indeed. 3 days after our chess match, the bell above my shop door chimed. I looked up from sketching a dragon design to see Mary Wood hovering in my doorway like she might bolt. "I want to cover up my tattoo," she said without preamble. Bullshit. The way she'd yanked down her sleeve told me that ink meant something, but I gestured toward the consultation chair anyway. "Show me what we're working with." She perched on the edge of the leather seat, rolling up her sleeve to reveal a small cross on her inner wrist. Simple black lines maybe 2 inches tall, amateur work, probably done with a safety pin and India ink. "When?" I asked, examining it closely. 17. Right before I entered the convent. Her voice dropped to a whisper. "I thought it would help me remember my commitment." The irony wasn't lost on me. A cross tattoo to mark her dedication to God. Now she wanted it erased after leaving his service. Why cover it? It's part of your story. It's part of a story I'm trying to forget. I set down my magnifying glass and really looked at her. Dark circles under those brown eyes. Tension in every line of her body. This woman was running from something deeper than regret. "Coffee?" I offered. Real conversation happens over caffeine. I don't want to impose. Lady, you walked into my shop asking me to destroy art. We're way past imposing. The coffee shop next door smelled like cinnamon and possibility. Mary wrapped her hands around her mug like it was an anchor. 20 years, she began without prompting. 20 years of prayers and silence and serving others. Never questioning, never wanting anything for myself. What changed? She stared into her coffee. I started having dreams. About? Women. The word came out barely audible. Not just any women. Specific dreams about touching, about being touched, about feeling alive in ways the church said were sinful. My heart hammered against my ribs. In my shop, I'd heard countless confessions over the years. People talked while getting tattooed, spilling secrets they'd never tell therapists. But this felt different, personal. That's not sinful, Mary, that's human. Try telling that to Mother Superior. Her laugh was bitter. Or the other sisters who suspected. The conversations that stopped when I entered rooms. The way they started pairing me with Brother Thomas for community work. They were trying to fix you. They were trying to save my soul. She finally met my eyes, but I realized my soul didn't need saving. It needed living. The afternoon heat pressed against the coffee shop windows. Around us, Mobile moved at its lazy summer pace, but in our corner booth, everything felt urgent. So why cover the tattoo? Why not add to it instead? Add to it? Transform it. Keep the cross but make it part of something bigger. Something that represents both who you were and who you're becoming. Her fingers traced the rim of her mug. I've never thought about it that way. Most people see tattoos as permanent mistakes or rebellious statements. I see them as evolution. Chapters in a story. What story would my cross tell? I leaned forward, caught up in the possibilities. Maybe wings sprouting from it, freedom emerging from faith, or vines growing around it, life reclaiming sacred ground. You make it sound beautiful. Mary, you walked away from the only life you'd known because you refused to deny who you are. That's the most beautiful thing I've heard in years. Color rose in her cheeks. You don't think it's selfish? Abandoning my vows? I think it's brave as hell. She smiled then, really smiled, and I felt something dangerous unfold in my chest. This woman was half my age, fresh out of a convent, probably confused about everything. The last thing she needed was a grizzled tattoo artist with commitment issues and a history of complicated relationships. But damn, when she smiled like that, I forgot every rational thought I'd ever had. Will you design something for me? She asked. Something that honors both parts of my story? I'd be honored. As we walked back to my shop, her shoulder brushed mine. Such a small contact, but it sent electricity racing through me. Mary Wood, former bride of Christ, was about to become my next masterpiece. I just hoped I could keep my hands steady while creating it. When Mary returned for her tattoo session the following week, I'd spent days perfecting the design. Delicate wings unfurling from her simple cross, flowing into flowering vines that wrapped around her wrist like a living bracelet. Faith transformed into freedom. She studied the sketch with those deep brown eyes. It's perfect. You sure? Once we start, there's no going back. I'm done going back. I prepared my station while she settled into the chair, rolling up her sleeve to expose pale skin that had rarely seen sunlight. The convent had kept her sheltered in more ways than one. This might sting, I warned, bringing the needle close to her wrist. 20 years of kneeling on stone floors. I can handle pain. But when the needle touched her skin, she inhaled sharply. Not from pain. From the intimacy of my gloved hands steadying her arm, the careful precision of each line I drew on her body. Tell me about your life before the convent, I said, trying to distract us both from the electricity crackling between us. Normal childhood. Parents wanted me to be a teacher or nurse, safe careers for good Catholic girls. She watched my hands work. But I wanted something more meaningful. And now? Now I'm not sure what I want. The honest uncertainty in her voice made my heart clench. Here was a woman rebuilding herself from scratch at 30, figuring out desires she'd spent 2 decades suppressing. You've got time to figure it out. Do I? I feel like I'm so far behind everyone else. I've never even been on a real date. My hand paused. Never? Seminary at 18, then straight into the convent. I've never been kissed, never been held, never explored what it means to want someone. The needle trembled slightly in my grip. This beautiful, intelligent woman had never experienced basic human intimacy. The knowledge hit me like a physical blow. That must have been lonely. Terrifying, actually, realizing I'd given up experiences I'd never even had. She met my eyes. What was your first kiss like? Clumsy. 16 years old behind the gym bleachers with Tommy Morrison. All teeth and desperation. I smiled at the memory. But my first real kiss, the one that mattered, that was with a woman named Sarah when I was 22. She taught me the difference between kissing and being kissed. What's the difference? Intent, feeling, the desire to lose yourself in another person instead of just going through motions. Mary's breathing grew shallow. I dream about being kissed like that. Mary. My voice came out rougher than intended. I know what you're thinking. Confused ex-nun, experimenting, not ready for real feelings. She captured my wrist with her free hand. But I've never been more certain of anything in my life. These feelings, they're not new. They're just finally free. The tattoo gun sat abandoned on my tray. Her fingers, so soft against my skin, sent fire racing through my veins. 58 years old, and she made me feel like a teenager again. You don't understand what you're asking. Then show me. Before I could think, before I could list all the reasons this was insane, she pulled me closer. Her lips found mine, tentative at first, then with growing confidence as I responded. Damn the age difference. Damn my better judgment. Damn everything except the sweet desperation of her mouth and the way she whispered my name against my lips. When we finally broke apart, we were both breathing hard. Was that your first real kiss? I managed. Yes. Her smile was radiant, and I understand the difference now. I touched her cheek, amazed by the softness. Mary, you need to be sure about this. I'm not a safe choice. I'm complicated and stubborn and old enough to be your mother. You're also brilliant and beautiful and the first person who's ever made me feel truly alive. She caught my hand, pressing it against her racing heart. I don't want safe, Miranda. I want real. Looking into those brown eyes, seeing the certainty there, I knew I was lost. Whatever this was between us, whatever complications lay ahead, I couldn't walk away. She'd awakened something in me I'd thought was dead. Her tattoo remained half-finished, but something else was just beginning. We closed the shop early that evening, the half-finished tattoo a tender reminder of what had started between us. Mary followed me upstairs to my apartment, her presence transforming my familiar space into something charged with possibility. I brought my accounting background to good use today, she said, settling at my kitchen table with my business ledgers. Your bookkeeping system is creative, but not exactly legal. Creative is my specialty. She laughed, making careful notes in neat handwriting. 20 years of convent discipline showed in every precise letter. But when she looked up at me making coffee, something wild flickered in those brown eyes. Miranda, can I ask you something personal? Shoot. When did you know? About women, I mean. I set down her mug, considering. College. Art history class studying Renaissance paintings. The professor was discussing the male gaze in classical nudes, and I realized I wasn't looking at the women the way my male classmates were. I was seeing beauty, yes, but also strength. Power. I wanted to touch their faces, not just their bodies. That's beautiful. What about you? When did you first know? Mary's cheeks flushed pink. Sister Catherine. She taught music at the convent school. I was 19, she was maybe 25. Beautiful voice, gentle hands when she guided my fingers on the piano keys. She paused. I used to invent reasons to need extra help just to spend time with her. Did anything happen? God, no. She was devoted, truly called. But I would lie in my narrow bed at night thinking about her smile, imagining what it would feel like to hold her hand without the excuse of piano lessons. Thunder rumbled outside, promising one of Alabama's spectacular summer storms. Mary glanced toward the windows as lightning illuminated the darkening sky. I should probably head back to my hotel before this hits. Stay. The word escaped before I could stop it. I mean, the roads flood fast when these storms come through. It's safer here. She studied my face in the lamplight. Is that the only reason you want me to stay? No. The admission hung between us as rain began pattering against the windows. Mary set down her pen, pushing the ledgers aside. I left the convent because I couldn't live a lie anymore, she said quietly. I won't start lying to myself now. Mary, I want to understand what I've been missing, what it means to want someone who wants me back. She stood, moving closer until I could smell her subtle perfume, see the pulse racing at her throat. 20 years of denial had led to this moment, this choice. I don't want to hurt you. Then don't. Show me what it means to be wanted. When I kissed her this time, it was different, deeper. My hands found the soft curve of her waist as she melted against me. She tasted like possibility and courage, like everything I'd forgotten I needed. Her fingers fumbled with the buttons of my shirt, clumsy but determined. I don't know what I'm doing. Neither do I whispered against her ear. We'll figure it out together. I led her to my bedroom, rain now pounding against the windows like nature's applause. In the soft light from the bedside lamp, Mary looked ethereal, almost too perfect to touch. Are you sure? I asked one last time. I've never been more certain of anything. What followed was tender and sweet, Mary's gasps of discovery mixing with whispered endearments. I showed her the geography of desire, the landscape of intimacy she'd only imagined. Her body responded like it had been waiting 30 years for this awakening, arching beneath my touch with innocent passion. When she cried out my name, it sounded like a prayer finally answered. Afterward, we lay tangled in my sheets while the storm raged outside. Mary traced patterns on my skin, marveling at the tattoos decorating my arms and shoulders. No regrets? I asked softly. Only that I waited so long. She pressed a kiss to my collarbone. Miranda, I need you to know this isn't experimentation or rebellion. This is me finally being honest about who I am. And who are you, Mary Wood? She smiled, looking younger and older simultaneously. I'm a woman who's completely, hopelessly in love with a brilliant tattoo artist. My heart stopped. Mary, I know it's fast. I know we barely know each other, but some truths don't need time to be real. Looking at her face in the lamplight, I realized she was right. Whatever this was, it had moved beyond attraction or curiosity into something deeper, something that scared the hell out of me. I love you too, I whispered. The storm outside was nothing compared to what was brewing between us. Everything changed on a Tuesday morning when Mary's phone wouldn't stop buzzing. She was organizing my supply closet, humming while she worked, completely unaware that her life was about to explode. Miranda, look at this. Her voice carried a strange note as she stared at her screen. The headline made my blood freeze. Former nun gets inked, faith to flesh, in Mobile, Alabama. Below it was a crystal-clear photo of Mary leaving my shop 3 days ago. Her sleeve rolled up to show the half-finished tattoo. How did they get this? My mind raced. Jessica Morrison runs that gossip blog. She's been trying to catch me with married clients for years. But within hours, Mary's story had exploded beyond local gossip. Social media picked it up, then regional news outlets. By evening, national websites were running stories about the tattooed ex-nun with headlines like Sacred to Sinful and From Habit to Ink. This is insane, Mary whispered, scrolling through hundreds of comments ranging from supportive to vicious. My phone rang constantly. Reporters wanting statements, religious groups demanding boycotts, curious clients asking if the nun was really getting tattooed here. I stopped answering after the 5th death threat. Maybe we should close the shop for a few days, I suggested. No. Mary's jaw set with determination I recognized. I won't hide from this. But hiding became impossible when a producer from Atlanta called offering Mary her own show. Faith and Freedom, they wanted to call it. A platform to share her journey from religious devotion to personal empowerment. Think about it, Miss Wood. Your story could inspire millions of women trapped in situations they're afraid to leave. Mary looked at me across my kitchen table, the contract spread between us like a roadmap to a life I couldn't follow. It's an incredible opportunity, I said, though each word felt like swallowing glass. It would mean moving to Atlanta. I know. Leaving you. I forced a smile. Hey, we've had 3 amazing weeks. Some people don't get that much in a lifetime. Miranda, don't. Don't what? Don't be realistic? Mary, you're 30 years old with your whole life ahead of you. I'm 58 running a tattoo shop in Mobile. This offer could change everything for you. She grabbed my hands. I don't want everything to change. I want this, what we have. What we have is complicated. You're famous now, whether you asked for it or not. People are watching your every move. As if summoned by my words, my phone chimed with another notification. Someone had posted photos from last night when we'd grabbed dinner at our usual place. The comments were brutal. Old dyke corrupting the innocent nun. Disgusting predator taking advantage of vulnerable woman. Age gap much? Grandmother dating her granddaughter. Mary read over my shoulder, her face paling. They don't know us. Doesn't matter. This is your reality now. That evening, protesters gathered outside my shop. Signs reading "Respect the Cloth" and "Sinner Repent" blocked the entrance. Mrs. Patterson from the church auxiliary led prayers for Mary's soul, while teenagers live-streamed the spectacle. I can't let you suffer because of me, Mary said, watching from my apartment window. I've dealt with worse. But I hadn't. Not like this. Not with someone I loved caught in the crossfire of other people's judgment. The breaking point came when Channel 7 ran an investigative piece titled "Preying on the Faithful." They interviewed former clients willing to lie about my aggressive tactics and inappropriate behavior, painting me as someone who targeted vulnerable women for exploitation. They're destroying your reputation, Mary said, tears streaming down her face. Reputations can be rebuilt. Not if I stay. Every day I'm here, I'm ammunition for them to use against you. She was right, and we both knew it. The Mary I'd fallen for was disappearing under media scrutiny and public expectations. She'd started checking herself before speaking, worried about how every word might be interpreted. Maybe we should take a break, she said quietly, until things calm down. Is what you want? I want to protect you. But protection felt like abandonment when she started sleeping at her hotel again, when our stolen moments became careful conversations in public spaces designed to avoid more photographs. The woman who'd boldly kissed me in my shop was retreating, becoming someone else under pressure, someone who second-guessed every impulse, every touch, every genuine moment between us. 3 weeks after the story broke, the Atlanta producer called with a deadline. They needed her answer by Friday. You should take it, I told her Thursday night as we sat in my apartment barely touching. Miranda, I'm serious. This is bigger than us. You could help people. She looked at me with those brown eyes I'd grown to love, and I saw the exact moment she decided to let me go. Not because she wanted to, but because she thought it was best for both of us. Maybe you're right, she whispered. Maybe I was. But right had never felt so much like the end of everything. The television contract sat on my kitchen counter like a death sentence. 3 days left before Mary had to give Atlanta her answer, and we were both pretending everything was normal. I think you should do it, I said for the 100th time, forcing enthusiasm into my voice. This could change lives, Mary. Women trapped in situations they're afraid to leave, people struggling with their identity. You could be their voice. She looked up from my financial records, pen frozen mid-calculation. What if I don't want to be anyone's voice? What if I just want to be yours? Damn. The raw honesty in her words nearly broke my resolve, but I'd spent 3 sleepless nights thinking about this, and logic was unforgiving. Mary was 30 years old with fame knocking at her door. I was 58 with a small-town tattoo shop and a history of failed relationships. You deserve more than this, Mary. More than mobile, more than hiding from photographers, more than an old woman who can't give you the life you should have. Stop calling yourself old. I'm 28 years older than you. That's not going away. She set down her pen and moved to the window overlooking Dauphin Street. The protesters had finally dispersed, but damage lingered. 3 longtime clients had canceled appointments. The church ladies made pointed detours around my block. Even the mailman avoided eye contact. They're punishing you because of me, she said quietly. They're showing their true colors. This town was never as progressive as it pretended to be. But it was your home. Home is supposed to accept you as you are. I joined her at the window. Maybe it's time for both of us to find new homes. She turned, hope flickering in those brown eyes. You'd come with me? The question I'd been dreading. Follow her to Atlanta, become the older girlfriend hovering in the background of her bright new life? Watch her outgrow me as she discovered a world beyond convent walls and small-town limitations? Mary, you need space to figure out who you are without 20 years of religious conditioning. I'd just be another influence pulling you in a direction. What if I already know who I am? 3 weeks ago, you'd never been kissed. There's so much you haven't experienced yet. Her jaw set in that stubborn line I'd grown to recognize. So you think I should go explore? Test other relationships? I think you should live, really live. Date people your own age, travel, make mistakes, discover what you actually want versus what you think you want. And if what I want is you, my heart shattered a little more. Then I'll still be here when you're sure. But we both knew that was a lie. Whatever we had was fragile, built on timing and circumstance. Once she left, once she became the person fame and freedom would make her, there'd be no coming back to this moment. That evening, she cooked dinner in my kitchen one last time. Simple pasta with marinara sauce, but it tasted like goodbye. We ate in almost silence, every mundane detail suddenly precious. Remember our first chess game? She asked, twirling spaghetti around her fork. You destroyed me in 12 moves. 15. But who's counting? Her smile held sadness. I knew then that you were dangerous. Dangerous how? You made me want things I'd never let myself imagine. Sitting across from you, watching your hands move the pieces, I understood for the first time what desire actually felt like. I reached across the table to touch her fingers. Mary. I love you, Miranda. Not because you awakened something in me. Not because you represent rebellion or freedom or any of the things the media wants to make this about. I love you because you see me. The real me, not the nun I was or the symbol they want me to become. I love you too. That's why I can't ask you to stay. Later, as she gathered her few belongings from my apartment, I tried to memorize everything. The way she folded clothes with convent precision, how she touched my books like they were treasures, the careful way she packed the tattoo aftercare supplies, her wrist piece still healing. Will you finish the tattoo before I go? She asked. Are you sure you want me to? I want your art on my skin, Miranda. Something permanent to carry with me. The next afternoon, she sat in my chair one final time. The partially completed wings and vines waited for completion, delicate lines that would transform her simple cross into something magnificent. Tell me about Atlanta, I said, starting the machine. Production starts in 6 weeks. They want to film some episodes here in Mobile, show my connection to this place. That'll be good. Familiar ground. Will you watch? The show, I mean? My hand paused. Mary, I don't think that would be healthy for either of us. Right. Of course. We worked in silence while I added the final details to her tattoo. Delicate shading on the wing feathers, subtle highlights on the flowering vines. When I finished, it was breathtaking. Faith and freedom intertwined on her skin, beautiful and meaningful. It's perfect, she whispered, studying it in the mirror. You're perfect. She kissed me then. Soft and desperate and final. I tasted tears, though I wasn't sure if they were hers or mine. I'll call you, she said. Don't. Not for a while. Give yourself time to settle into your new life. Walking away from love is supposed to feel noble, sacrificial. Instead, it just felt like the worst mistake of my life. Mary's farewell party at O'Malley's pub felt like a wake. Half of Mobile's creative community showed up, along with supporters who'd rallied around her story. She moved through the crowd gracefully, hugging well-wishers and promising to keep in touch. But I could see the exhaustion in her eyes. I stayed in the corner nursing a whiskey, watching her perform the role of inspiring ex-nun one last time. Tomorrow she'd be on a plane to Atlanta, and this chapter of our lives would close forever. Miranda Kelly. Been a while? The voice behind me made my blood freeze. Sarah Martinez stood there, looking exactly the same as when she'd walked out of my life 5 years ago. Same raven hair, same predatory smile that had once made me forget my own name. Sarah, what brings you back to Mobile? Heard about your little romance with the famous nun. She gestured toward Mary with her wine glass. Thought I'd come see for myself. There's nothing to see. Really? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you're doing that thing again. You know, where you convince yourself you're protecting someone by pushing them away. I turned back to my drink. We're not doing this here. Why not? Public places were always your favorite for breakups. Sarah moved closer, lowering her voice. Tell me, Miranda, does she know about your pattern yet? How you collect broken birds, fix them up, then send them flying when things get real. Mary's different. They're all different. That's what makes them the same. Sarah's laugh was bitter. Remember Jessica, the recovering addict who needed stability? You dated her for 8 months, then decided she deserved better than an old tattoo artist with commitment issues. Sarah, stop. Or what about Carmen, the divorced mother who was rebuilding her life? 6 months of playing house before you decided she needed someone who could give her more children. My hands clenched around my glass. Those situations were complicated. No, Miranda. You were scared. Just like you're scared now. Sarah's voice softened mockingly. This one's really gotten under your skin, hasn't she? Young, innocent, seeing you like you're some kind of savior instead of the emotional coward you actually are. You don't know what you're talking about. I know you convinced her to take that Atlanta job. I know you're sitting here drinking alone at her goodbye party instead of fighting for her. Sarah leaned closer. And I know that in 5 years, you'll be doing the same thing to someone else. The words hit like physical blows because part of me wondered if she was right. Was I protecting Mary, or protecting myself from the inevitable disappointment when she realized I wasn't worth the complications? Across the room, Mary caught my eye and started walking over. Sarah noticed and smiled like a shark scenting blood. This should be interesting. Miranda, there you are. Mary appeared beside us, slightly breathless from working the crowd. I was hoping we could... Oh. She noticed Sarah and her expression grew wary. Mary Wood, meet Sarah Martinez, my ex-girlfriend. The ex-girlfriend, Sarah corrected with poisonous sweetness. The one who actually tried to build a life with Miranda before she decided I deserved better than her damaged heart and abandonment issues. Mary's back straightened. I see. Do you? Because Miranda has this fascinating habit of falling for women who need rescuing, then nobly stepping aside when they might actually want to stay rescued. Sarah's smile was razor sharp. Tell me, Mary, whose idea was the Atlanta job really? Sarah, that's enough, I warned. Oh, I'm just getting started. See, Mary, Miranda likes to play the selfless hero. She'll convince you that leaving is best for you, that she's holding you back, that you deserve someone younger and less complicated. Mary looked between us, pieces clicking into place. Is that true? Mary, it's not that simple. It's exactly that simple, Sarah continued relentlessly. She did the same thing to me. Same speeches about my career, my future, how she was just an old tattoo artist who couldn't give me what I deserved. Sound familiar? The color drained from Mary's face. Miranda. The truth is, Sarah delivered the killing blow. Miranda doesn't believe she deserves to be loved. So she sends away anyone who might prove her wrong. That's enough. I stood abruptly, but the damage was done. Mary stared at me with devastation in her brown eyes. Is she right? Is this all just you running from commitment? Mary, please. Not here. Answer me. Is your noble sacrifice routine just another way of protecting yourself? The pub had grown quiet around us, conversations dying as people sensed drama. I looked at Mary, seeing hurt and confusion, and something that might have been betrayal. I want what's best for you. That's not what I asked. Her voice broke. Do you love me enough to fight for us, or are you just another person who finds it easier to leave? The question hung between us like a bridge I was too afraid to cross. Because what if Sarah was right? What if I was just repeating old patterns, using Mary's best interests as an excuse for my own cowardice? I thought so, Mary whispered when I didn't answer immediately. She walked away then, heading for the exit without looking back. The party continued around us, but I stood frozen, watching the woman I loved disappear into the mobile night. Well, Sarah said with satisfaction, that went exactly as expected. But for once, I wasn't sure if she was talking about Mary or me. Mary left for Atlanta the next morning without saying goodbye. I knew because I sat in my truck across from her hotel from dawn until I watched her taxi disappear toward the airport. Pathetic didn't begin to cover it. For 3 days, I buried myself in work. Walk-in clients, flash tattoos, anything to keep my hands busy and my mind off brown eyes and the taste of goodbye. Then my accountant called with news that made no sense. Someone's been making payments on your shop mortgage, Linda said. Anonymous cashier's checks, always the exact amount due plus a little extra toward principal. That's impossible. My mortgage payments come directly from my business account. Miranda, these are additional payments. Someone's been covering your overhead for the past month. Insurance, utilities, even that new equipment you ordered. My mind raced. How much total? Nearly $15,000. Whoever's doing this has access to all your financial information. Only one person had spent hours going through my books, organizing my chaos into neat columns. Only one person understood exactly what my business needed to survive. I hung up and immediately tried calling Mary. Straight to voicemail. Her Atlanta hotel wouldn't put me through. When I called the production company, they said she was unavailable for personal calls. That evening, I was closing up when my phone rang. Unknown Atlanta number. Miranda, it's me. Mary's voice hit me like a physical blow. She sounded tired, older somehow. Mary, thank God. We need to talk about the money. What money? Don't play innocent. My accountant found the payments you've been making. Silence stretched between us. Finally, she sighed. How did you find out? Why, Mary? Why would you do that? Because I love you, you stubborn woman. Because walking away doesn't erase what we built together. Her voice cracked. Because I couldn't bear the thought of you losing your shop over the chaos I brought into your life. I never asked you to fix my problems. You know, you never ask for anything. That's your problem, Miranda. You give everything and take nothing, then wonder why people think you don't want them to stay. I slumped against my shop counter, phone pressed to my ear like a lifeline. Mary, where are you exactly? Atlanta. Why? I mean, where in Atlanta? What hotel? What room? Another pause. Miranda, what are you doing? Something Sarah said made me realize I've been the biggest coward in the world. You asked if I loved you enough to fight for us and I froze. Well, here's your answer. Miranda, don't. The Marriott downtown? The Westin? Mary, I'm driving to Atlanta tonight whether you tell me or not. We can do this the easy way or the hard way. You can't just show up here. Watch me. I'm not at a hotel anymore. Her voice got smaller. I'm at the airport. My heart stopped. You're leaving? I told them no, Miranda. I turned down the show. What? Why? Because none of it means anything without you. The fame, the platform, the chance to help people. None of it matters if I can't share it with the person I love. I was already grabbing my keys, heading for the door. What airline? What flight? Miranda, stop. I'm not running away this time. Then what are you doing? I'm coming home. The word hit me like salvation. Home. Not mobile, not the place she'd briefly stayed. Home to me. Mary, I need to tell you something. Sarah was right about my pattern, but wrong about the reason. I don't push people away because I don't believe I deserve love. I push them away because I'm terrified of how much I need it. Miranda. You scare the hell out of me, Mary Wood. You make me want things I convinced myself I was too old for. A real partnership, a shared life, someone who sees all my flaws and stays anyway. Tears I'd been holding back for days finally broke free. I don't want to protect you from me anymore. I want to build something with you. Even if it's complicated? Especially then. Her laugh was pure joy. My flight lands at 9:30, gate 7. I'll be there. Miranda? Bring the tattoo gun. What? My tattoo needs a touch-up. Something about adding your initials to the design? I laughed, despite my tears. Mary, that's the most romantic thing anyone's ever said to me. Just wait until I show you what else I learned in Atlanta. What did you learn? That running toward love is scarier than running away from it, but infinitely more rewarding. I was already on the road, Mobile's lights fading in my rearview mirror, as I drove toward the woman who'd taught me the difference between giving up and letting go. Sarah had been wrong about everything that mattered. This wasn't about patterns or fear or self-sabotage. This was about choosing love over logic, hope over history, and the future over the past. Mary was coming home, and I was finally brave enough to call it that. I reached the airport 30 minutes early and paced Gate 7 like a caged animal. Every passing minute felt like an hour, but when I finally saw Mary emerging from the jetway, my heart stopped entirely. She looked different, confident. Her blonde hair was shorter, styled professionally, but her brown eyes held the same warmth that had undone me from the beginning. When she spotted me, her face lit up with the kind of smile that made everything else disappear. "You came," she said, dropping her carry-on to embrace me. "Did you think I wouldn't? I hoped you would." She pulled back to study my face. "You look terrible. 3 days without sleep will do that." 3 days of thinking you'd lost me forever will do that, she corrected, touching my cheek gently. "Miranda, I'm sorry about what happened at the pub. Sarah blindsided both of us. She wasn't wrong about everything. I do have a pattern of running when things get real." "But you're here now?" "I'm here now," I confirmed, kissing her forehead, "and I'm not going anywhere." The drive back to Mobile gave us 2 hours to talk, really talk, about everything that had happened. Mary explained how the Atlanta producers had wanted to sensationalize her story, turn our relationship into a cautionary tale about religious rebellion and predatory older women. "They had scripts written where you were basically the villain," she said, watching Alabama countryside roll past. "The manipulative older woman taking advantage of a confused ex-nun." I walked out during the first table read. "Mary, you gave up an incredible opportunity." "I gave up the wrong opportunity for the right reasons." She reached across the console to take my hand. "But I have another idea. Something better." Back in Mobile, we sat in my apartment as Mary outlined her vision. A combination tattoo parlor and counseling center, serving people transitioning between old lives and new ones. Former addicts, divorce survivors, people leaving restrictive religious backgrounds, anyone seeking to mark their transformation with both ink and understanding. "We could call it Sacred Transformations," she said, eyes bright with possibility. "You'd handle the artistic side, I'd provide the emotional support, help people process their changes before they commit them to skin." "Mary, that's brilliant. But are you sure? You'd be giving up fame, television, the chance to influence millions?" "I'd rather influence dozens deeply than millions superficially." She moved closer on the couch. "Besides, I can't think of anything more meaningful than helping people mark their freedom." The next morning, we officially reopened my shop together. Word spread quickly through Mobile's networks that the famous ex-nun had returned, not as a media sensation but as a business partner. Our first client was a middle-aged woman leaving an abusive marriage, wanting to cover scars with something beautiful. "Tell me about new beginnings," Mary said gently as I prepared my equipment. By the 3rd week, we had a waiting list. People drove from Mississippi and Florida seeking our unique combination of artistry and understanding. Mary's gentle questions helped clients process their journeys while my needle transformed their stories into permanent art. "We're good at this," I told her one evening as we cleaned up after a particularly emotional session with a young man transitioning gender identity. "We're good together," she corrected, wrapping her arms around my waist from behind. 6 months later, we were planning our commitment ceremony. Nothing elaborate, just a small gathering in the shop surrounded by friends who'd supported our unconventional love story. Mary wore a simple white dress that showed off her completed tattoo, wings and vines now enhanced with delicate script reading Miranda's heart in flowing letters along her forearm. "Regrets?" I asked as we stood before our small assembly of witnesses. "Only that it took me 30 years to find you." The minister, a progressive woman from the Unitarian Church, spoke about love transcending age, background, and expectation. But I barely heard the words. I was lost in Mary's brown eyes, amazed that this brilliant, beautiful woman had chosen me despite every rational reason not to. Do you, Miranda Kelly, promise to love Mary Wood through all of life's transformations? I do. Forever. And do you, Mary Wood, promise to love Miranda Kelly with the same devotion you once gave to higher calling? I do. She is my higher calling. When we kissed, sealing our promise, the small crowd cheered. But Sarah was wrong about one thing. This wasn't about rescue or salvation or broken birds flying away. This was about two whole people choosing to build something together, something permanent as the ink we created, and twice as beautiful. That night, lying in our shared bed above the shop, Mary traced the new tattoo on my shoulder. A small cross intertwined with roses, marking my own transformation from cynic to believer. Happy? She asked. Completely. Outside, Mobile slept peacefully, but inside our little world, everything was just beginning. We'd found our sacred space between faith and freedom, between past and future, in the simple act of choosing love over fear. Some stories end with dramatic gestures or grand declarations. Ours ended with quiet certainty, steady as the hum of tattoo guns and sweet as morning coffee shared between two women who'd waited their whole lives to come home.